Welcome to WebHunga. Today I'm going to share some advanced concepts in CSS using Flexbox and Grid. Please note that this course is not intended for a beginner level. So this is for an intermediate or an advanced user who like to learn more about Flexbox and Grid and using its power to build your website. Also, consider subscribing to my channel. That gives me more motivation to make such videos and give you a lot of resources to build your website. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to show you the developer console in Chrome, and I'm going to explain the CSS and the HTML using this developer module. So the first example is center using grid. As you can see here, the text I am center is centered to this box. So I have used two properties here, display grid and place item center. You could view the HTML here. So there is a box, and to this box I have given a width of 150 and height of 150. And to this box I have given a display grid and a place items center. So what it does, so this place item center, it just directly places the item, whatever in the box, to the center. So that's all about centering using grid. You may know that there are concepts in centering text or a content using Flexbox. So I'm just trying to say that there are techniques for centering other than the display flex. Okay, now let's move on to the next example. This is understanding flex, grow, shrink basis. It's a shorthand properties in Flex. So there are two examples here. As you can see, there is three boxes, one with a flex 01 basis and the other with a flex 11 basis. So what is this flex 01 basis and flex 11 basis? Before we get on the CSS, let us understand the HTML of this. So this is the flex box, and to this flex box I have given display flex, justify content center, a flex wrap because this box has to wrap when there is no place for this wrap, right? And I have given a min height of 150px so that this is kind of boxy. To this I have three flex items, 1, 2 and 3. To each flex item I have given flex 01 150. So what is the 01 150? So 0 is flex grow and 1 is flex shrink, and flex basis is 150px. So this 150px is something this flex box or this individual flex item has to maintain. So in the second example, you could see the box sizes differ. Why is that? It's because the flex grow is 1. So let us look at the second example. To the flex item, I have given flex 1 1 150. So what's 1 1 150? So that's a flex grow 1, flex shrink 1, flex base is 150px. So the flex grow is 1. So it's just grow and takes the whole space within this container. Let us shrink this box and see what happens. So when there is no space for the third box, it wraps because we have given the display flex to wrap. Notice that the third box took the whole space available for that row. So this is the power of flex grow. It just grow to whatever space it can. And remember the previous chapter, we learned about centering an item using grid. Here I have centered the item using flex. So in this flex item, I have the number 1, 2 and 3. So to this flex item, I have given display flex, justify content center and align item center. So let me take off all these properties, and you can see this is the original position of this text. So when I gave justify content center, it just centered horizontally, and when I gave align item center, it centered vertically. So this is another way for centering a text. I know that most users might have known this, but it's best for refreshment. Okay, let's move on to the next example. that is min max in grid template column. Let me put them on the screen. Okay, that's min max in grid template columns. So what's a min max in grid template columns? So you could see a box, a yellow box and a blue box. So this yellow box has to maintain a minimum of 150px, and it can take a whole space of 25% if something is above this 150px. So the CSS property I've used here is to display grid template columns, min max 150px, 25%, 1fr. Let us look at the HTML and we can get on with the CSS. So this is the min max container, and as you can see here, I have given a display grid template columns of min max 150px, 25%, 1fr. So this first one, the min max 150px, 25%, it corresponds to the first div, right? And the 1fr corresponds to the second div. So it's all self-explanatory. So it just maintain an 150px, and if it had a more space than 150px, it actually takes the 25%. And the 1fr, it just take the remaining spaces. So very simple line of code. So there is no need for a big CSS or using floats. So you can use the grid to simplify things. All right, now let's move on to the next example, understanding grid template rows. So this is the usual layout where we saw in many websites. There's a header and a main and a footer. Notice this, the main has occupied the space, I mean a maximum space compared to the header and the footer. So the CSS here we are going to use is grid template rows auto 1fr auto. Let us take a look at the HTML. So this is the grid row. I had given a minimum height of 300px. So if there isn't height, it's not going to grow. I mean, there is no point in growing. So I'm just giving a minimum height of 300 pixel. And to this, there's a header, a main, and a footer. So to this grid row, I have given the grid template rows to be auto 1fr auto. So what's that mean? The first div will be an auto. That is, it takes the space that is required for that content. So it goes the same for the footer. That's also an auto. So the middle is a 1fr. So what's a 1fr? As we discussed in the previous, it just takes the remaining spaces. So this is very easy to make a normal template. And let us look at the next example, understanding grid template. It's just something advanced from the previous example. So here we have a header, a left navigation, a main and right navigation, and a footer. So what's left navigation, main, and right navigation? You could see in many e-commerce sites there will be a left navigations and right navigations. This might help you to solve the problems. So the CSS properties I've used here is, as you can see, grid template, auto 1fr auto, and auto 1fr auto. So this is for row and columns. So this is kind of shorthand property. And the next is for a grid column X and Y. So why we need to use a grid column X and Y? We can take a look at that when we have a look at the HTML. So this is the grid template, and I have a header. I have 3 divs, left call, main call, right call, and there's a footer. So to this grid template, I have given, wait a minute, let me expand this. Okay, that's much better, I guess. All right, so to this grid template, I have given the grid template auto, the grid template to auto, 1fr auto, and auto 1fr auto. So what does that mean? So I have expanded the grid template and you could see here what's that mean. So it means the grid template rows, that is auto one of our auto, and the grid template columns, that is auto one of our auto, the grid template area is none. So I guess you guys might have know what's an auto means, right? I mean by now. So what's an auto? So the row, it is auto one of our auto, so it's just taking the auto one of our auto, and the column, it's also taking auto one of our auto. So this we have to split in 3, right? So that's why we are using a grid column. So this grid column, it just tell this grid to occupy a space from 1 to 2. And here for the main call, it says to occupy a space from 2 to 3. That is from 1 and from 2 to all the way 3. Right? And the right call, it just take the space from 3 to 4. That is from 3 to 4. So when I hover over this, so let me hover over this, you could see there is a 3 column layout, right? So that's what we are defining with the grid column. So this is from 1 to 2, this is from 2 to all the way 3, and this is from 3 to 4. And the footer, we are asking it to take the whole space from 1 to 4, right? And also the header, we are going to tell it to take all the space 1 to 4. So that's why you see here the header and the footer is occupying a full space. All right, so that's about understanding the grid template. Now let's move on to the next example, understanding a 12 column layout in grid. So what's a 12 column layout in grid? So you might have known, like using a bootstrap. So there are 12 columns which you can define. So in here, I have a simple example. So when I hover over this, I mean the div, there are 12 columns. So where did this 12 column came from? I have defined it. I have defined the grid template columns to repeat 12 times 1 of r. So what does it do? So this entire div is splitted equally 12 times. So you can also write 1 of r, 1 of r, 1 of r 12 times, like this, 1 of r, 1 of r, 1 of r. You can write it 12 times, but to save time, we have a shortened property, repeat 12 times 1 of r. So it just splitted the div into 12 equal parts. And to each div, I'm saying to take the space. So how do we say to take the space? We can use a grid column. So as you can see here, I have the grid column 1 to 13. So I'm just saying this div to take all the space from 1 to 13. That is the 12. I mean the 12 column. So to the span 6, I am asking it to take 7 to 13. That is, if you, I mean there's a difference, it will be 6. And to the span 4, I'm asking it to go from 1 to 5. And to the span 2, I'm asking it to go from 1 to 3. So that's why you could see here the 12 is taking the all the space, and 6 is taking from 7 to 13. That is from half the div to all the way to the edge. And the 4 is just taking from the start to the 4, and the 2 is taking the space from start to the 2. It's very easy, right? So you can make complex graphs, or you can make a complex structure, or you can make a masonry layout with this layout grid. Now let us move on to the next example, combine grid properties of repeat, auto, min-max. So what's the combined grid properties of repeat, auto, min-max? So let us look at the HTML. So this is the combined grid. And in here, I have 4 divs. To this main div, to this combined grid, I have given a display template columns of repeat, autofill, min-max, 150, and 1 of r. So what does that mean? So just going to do the autofill, and it's just going to maintain a min-max of 150 px, and with a 1FR. So I'm just going to close this developer tool. You could see it just maintained a 150px, right? We just used the autofill min-max 150 and 1FR, and it just maintained that 150px. So what if I make this box smaller? So this is quite responsive, right? So it's very responsive, and you could build some basics cards or layout with this shorthand property, and you can avoid all the extra media queries that you're going to write for each resolution or the desired resolution. So this is very handy, and the only CSS which we used here is repeat autofill min-max 150px 1FR. So that's it. Now let us look at the last example using the clamp method. So what's a clamp method? So it's just going to clamp the widths, and we're just going to define a predefined widths on it. So let us take a look on the HTML. To the HTML, I have given width clamp 150px, take a 50%, and a maximum of 900px. So it's just going to clamp by 150px. So you're going to see that. Do you see here? So it clamped by 150px. It didn't get shorter than 150px. And I'm going to expand it. So it's going to clamp again for 50% of the screen. Do you see that? It's just taking the 50% of screen. And when I expand it all the way over to the edge, is just going to take a maximum of 900 pixels. So it's just nothing but minimum, and this is the the optimum width, and this is the maximum width. So that's it about the clamp method. Yep, so we are at the end of our course, and I guess this gave you an advanced CSS concepts. Alright, so this gives you an understanding of the flex and grid. You can use this basic layout or the overview to build some complex structure. So these are some basics CSS, and it is going to turn the table and make your work much easier. Thank you very much, guys. I will see you in another video, and subscribe to my channel. That gives me more motivation to make such videos. And if you have any request, you can give me in the comment box, or if you have any feedback, you can give me in the comment box. Thank you.